weeknight, and it's not always convenient to do that, but I do appreciate it.
And you're Mr. Wiggins.
I'm Mr. Wiggins. I'm Carl Wiggins. My wife Leslie is back there in the back. I made her show up.
Okay.
I've got some business cards here. You know, if you guys want to pick them up afterwards, they've got my email address on there and the city number, but I can also give you I have a city cell phone, so I can give you that number as well. If you have any concerns or questions or anything that comes up after tonight, you're welcome to contact me. You know, I work during the day, so usually email or text message is the best way because I can't always answer a phone call. As far as what we're going to do here tonight, I'm going to try to do it very similar to the last meeting that I had. You know, obviously this is a District 3 meeting, and I will like to focus on questions about things in District 3 if possible. But you're welcome to ask anything. Ask that you know, kind of take turns and let other, if you have a question, let other people ask a question before you ask a third or fourth or fifth question. But you know, the fairly small group here, so in the time we have, I'm sure you'll have time to ask other things. But I don't really have a preamble or opening statement other than what I just said. So we'll go ahead and get started. And if you have a question, just raise your hand so I can acknowledge you and we'll get rolling.
Let's start with Watermelon Road.
Yes. So it's interesting. I talked to my neighbor across the street on Sunday, and I just said, hey, I'm having a town hall meeting. You know, if you're interested, come to. But if not, you know, do you have any concerns? He goes, well, Watermelon Road's really bad. And I said, well, I've got great news for you then, because the bidding process for that has already taken place. The work on Watermelon Road will begin, I think, next month. Is that right? Should be next month. So I'm super excited about it because that's the road that my neighborhood empties out onto. So that I use that road every day. My family uses it every day, and it is it's like driving over a washboard.
I think more people are going to use it after it gets paid.
Probably.
People avoid the road.
Sure.
Well, and I think too, it's important to note that that project was paid for with MPO dollars, which is 80% of it is federal dollars and 20% of it was city funds. So ALDOT is the lead on that project. So ALDOT had to bid the project. The city council agreed to go into a contract with ALDOT. They had to pay their 20%. We actually drove it down to Montgomery to make sure it got there as quick as possible. And then ALDOT will issue the notice to proceed. So ST Bund did get that contract.
How did it take 2 years? I mean, it was like 2 years.
Because, so Watermelon Road and Charlie Shirley started at the same time. And they had the same kind of funding.
Okay.
When we went through what they call plans, specs and engineering review with ALDOT, they requested that we make improvements to the pedestrian facilities at Rice Valley Road. They wanted us to add some handicap ramps in that area. The area where the handicap ramps were required to go was where storm inlets were, where drainage inlets were. So that required us to go back out at that point in the project and to get more survey and do engineering. So now in the construction project, you'll actually see some of those drainage inlets move. So that project got pushed back because of the request that ALDOT, because it's federal funds.
Drainage inlets, are those the things that
water go into? Yes.
They'll move?
Yeah, we're gonna have to tear them out, move them over so we can put handicap ramps in.
Oh, okay.
And so when you have federal dollars in it, you have to meet certain
handicap.
So, we're gonna do that in a future project, but they wanted it done in this project. So the consultant did not anticipate having to do that. So that required more survey and more design. So in this project, you'll actually see those get relocated and then handicap ramps will put in. So that's what stalled that project behind Charlie Shirley, because they started at the same time. So now the feds have to sign off on that, ALDOT has to sign off on that, so they're happy and we were able to go through it.
I have noticed about 3 wheelchair bound people that drive, they have the motorized, and they're on the sidewalk, so I guess that they're going to the grocery store.
So that's why that project, it did start at the same time as Charlie Shirley, but it got delayed because of those accessibility issues at the intersection.
Well, will there be any improvement in the Watermelon Road, McFarland Boulevard intersection? Turn it left from, I'm going east, turning left off on the Watermelon Road at night. It's hard to see the lanes. Thankfully, there's not as much traffic then
On McFarland Boulevard?
on Watermelon Road.
Well,
It's
you'll
hard
be able to
the
see.
lanes on Watermelon, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
you turn it into the lane, into Watermelon, turning left from McFarland.
From McFarland.
From McFarland, yeah.
Okay, so any improvements on McFarland, when they complete the Highway 82 project, that entire Highway 82 will be resurfaced and restriped.
Okay.
So that'll help you be able to see that. And then on Watermelon Road, that'll also be resurfaced and restriped. So you should have new, a lot of times when you can't see it at night, it's because the reflection in the stripes is faded. So both of those should be restriped when those projects are
Overhead
complete.
lights don't seem to be adequate either.
And the McFarland project, last I heard, which has been a couple months ago, is end of next year.
They got about another year on it,
Yeah.
sir.
On what they're doing in front of Winn-Dixie?
Well, from the bridge all the way up to,
Another
69.
year?
Actually, all the work they're doing now is just, they're doing the
Utilities,
dividers, and
drainage.
they're doing the utility work, and they're doing drainage, and it's all at the sides, but really the main paving work hasn't started yet, at all.
One of the ALDOT, workers recently said that they should be through by next summer.
Okay, so
Which is
that's a
nearly
little
a year.
bit
I thought all
ahead.
they had to do was pave.
They're widening it, they're
Big
they're
utility
closing
poles.
some of the access off, they're widening some of the entrances and doing some other things, but it's a lot that they're doing there.
How long did they anticipate it will take on Watermelon Road to complete that project?
I won't know the answer.
I think it's a 6 month, well, okay, so you'll probably see it happen in two different phases. Because we have the, intersection improvements, there is going to be work done to the signal. We have a little bit concern about how long the lead times are gonna be on those parts. So you'll probably see all the road work done, and then you'll probably see them come back and do some signal work several months later. We asked them to go ahead and let the project, they wanted to wait and give the contractor lead time, but we know the road's not in that kind of condition, so they agreed to go ahead and do the road work first. So it's gonna be a little confusing, cause you're gonna see the contractor out there twice. But hopefully they can get I think the road work part of it's about a 270-day contract, so about 9 months, 6 to 9 months.
And is the speed limit going to remain the same?
Yes, ma'am.
Because coming here
45.
tonight, I'm coming out of my neighborhood, Greenbrier,
Mhm.
they were going so fast that, I had a hard time getting out.
That doesn't mean they were going the speed limit.
Oh, I know, they were not. going
Almost
the
certainly
speed-
not.
They were not going the speed limit.
Mhm.
Who decides the speed limit?
It's based off of an engineering study. So there's several factors that go into setting the speed limit on a road, and then depending on which road it is, there's different jurisdiction on who sets the speed limit.
That's a main thorough through there, and in the mornings and late afternoons, people are hauling.
You got some people over there.
Yes.
Hey, so first I just wanna give a little bit of praise. I've used the, link on the city website several times to report issues, and it always works fabulous. It's done within a week, so if anybody doesn't know about that, there's a link on the city website to report a problem, and it's always gets taken care of. My second concern is, we're talking about road work, so Hunter Creek was like your first road to do, and there's problems with Hunter Creek already. There's two areas, if you're on Hunter Creek, coming from McFarland, go into 69, right before you get to the last stop sign, they came and put some Cold Creek in the pothole that was forming, but it's like it's washed out underneath, and you can see a sinkhole forming, and then once you get past, Sable Lane in that same lane, there's also, it looks like it's issues there already, so that concerns me, because there's a lot of road work going on, and it hasn't been that long ago since Hunter Creek was done, so I'm like wondering why we're seeing these issues.
I don't know when Hunter Creek was done, it had to have been prior to 2021. I've been here since 2021, it was done before then. But, yeah, we'll be glad to look at it and see if there's some kind of reasons why their sinkholes are forming.
I know, and I hesitate to pull my phone up because I don't remember what the other street was, but I know that there were a couple of others. You know, every year we have a resurfacing project that happens, and every district has a certain number of streets that they look at, and they're evaluated based on the quality of the surface. And I know that Applejack was one that's on the list that's probably going to be in the next, and maybe four or two that are those two are the ones that are kind of on the list recommended to be repaved. But we do have a process that goes through and looks at roads and determines what condition they're in, and sort of prioritizes the work. So of course there's always more work than we can get done within a year, but yeah, we can definitely take a
Sure.
look at
It just concerns me because it was one of the first roads that was done kind of with this new paving that's been going on. So it was after COVID, so it must have happened right before you came on. And it's just concerning because it's already areas that are starting to be a concern, so.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a lot of different reasons why you have pavement failures. You could have a utility under there that might be having an issue, or it could just be a bad place in the subsurface, which is, you know, we don't like that. We try to check it when we get through that. And then it always seems, I don't know if y'all, maybe I'm just notice it more because of what I do, but it seems like every time we pave a new road, somebody decides to come in and put a new water meter in or something because it's the brand new pavement. And I'm like, did you not done that, 2 weeks prior? But, so there's certain things like that, but yeah, we can look at it and see if there's some kind of other underlying issue that may need to be, yes.
I think it's paved in 20.
In 20?
Since we're talking about Hunter Creek Road, is there anything in the plans that can be done about Hunter Creek and 69?
No.
You can't get out, you can't get in. You go down McFarland and that's a mess down there. I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, obviously the problem with 69 is that we don't control what the ALDOT does with it because it's a state highway. So we can obviously put requests in to take a look at that intersection, but we can't make
Everybody's nice. A lot of times that people will stop next to you when traffic gets backed up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you sit there 10 minutes before that happens.
Yep.
Yeah, both ends of it are out of control.
Yeah, that is.
Then it gets backed up on Hunter Creek Road where everybody's cutting
Through.
and you can't
Right.
even get out of your driveway.
Yeah.
We live right on Hunter Creek Road.
I'm familiar right where you're talking about, because when I lived in Northwood Lake, I used to cut through sometimes to avoid the corner of 82 and 69. So yeah, I'm very familiar. Yes, ma'am.
I'm probably premature with this, but I want to ask this since they're talking about paving roads. When the Planning and Zoning Commission, probably the last time, voted in the access easement for the townhomes group, the builders group, to build the house off Clear Lake Street. That Clear Lake Street, to my knowledge, now Ron and I have lived there almost 50 years, and in all that period of time, Clear Lake Street, to my knowledge, has never been paved. It's been patched all along. Well, as soon as they get the house built, which they've already poured the footings the latter part of last week, and they've got concrete blocks in there now, so I think the house is going to be built fairly soon. What is the plan for repairing that street? Because they're talking about people cutting through there all the time, going from 69 over to McFarland on Hunter Creek Road, and I'm well familiar with that road. But at the same time, we have nearly as many coming, maybe not, from 69 over to Northwood Lake Drive East, and they use Clear Lake Street. Well, that street is very narrow, and that has got to be paved. Now, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I've been told before that when we ask about paving that street, they say they cannot get the heavy equipment in there to pave that street. Is that true or not true?
I wouldn't imagine that being true at all.
But it is going to have to be repaired, because right now, even if you try to come down Clear Lake Street from Northwood Lake Drive East, unless they've repaired it today, it is very dangerous in there, because they have been digging holes in there with their access to the sewer lines or whatever. And if you come off Northwood Lake Drive East and down through it, you're going to hit a hole in the Clear Lake. Well, if you're familiar with Clear Lake, you know it's narrow. You've got the lake on one side, right, and that's the dam for the lake. And then you've got the deep drop off on the other side, on the south side. So something needs to be done there, especially if cars are going back and forth. Now that school is back in session, the parents are coming through from here over to Northwood Lake. There's a lot of traffic on that street, and something is going to have to be done, I think, for safety. And I've already talked to, thank you for listening to me earlier, about some of the construction work in there. We've been fine so far until the house started being built, and they're blocking that street a lot too. Now, and people come down it and try to come down it, they can't, because it's construction, big equipment and things like that. They're blocking the street. They have to back up to Northwood Lake Drive East, or turn around and go back up 69. It's dangerous, I'll just tell you that.
Okay.
So, but the main thing I'm concerned about is when they get the house built too. The other thing is that has got to be paved or something. It can't, I don't think we can keep on having to just patch.
So, that will be handled just like any of our other projects. So we go through, I guess it was 2021, we went through and did a complete assessment of all the streets in the city of Northport. And so, and they were all graded out. We had a third-party consultant go in and do that. So when we go through the paving process, like to get this 2023 resurfacing list that Councilman Wiggins just referred to, we do several different things. We reach out to the council members and say, you know, you're in your districts, what do you see? What have your constituents reported? We reach out to Public Works and Utilities, and they let us know where they're seeing issues, because they have to maintain them. Specifically Public Works. Utilities, from a perspective of where have we cut the road and fixed water or sewer lines or something, that, because all that is ever changing. And then when we get that list, we look at what's called robotics, which the assessment was done in 2021. So we'll rank the worst roads in the entire city from worst to best. We take in these other requests and issues that we've seen, and we actually go out in the field and do a field assessment, because things do change. You know, you may have a road that was in great condition, and then somebody comes in and the water line busts and they tear it up, and now it's, you know, we're having issues. So we go out in the field every single time. We make our list based off of what the budget is for that year, because, you know, we can only go down until we run out of money. We send those back to the council members for them to look at and make comments. They do that, and that's where we are in this process. I think they were going to give us comments by this past Friday. And so on the 18th, you'll see the 2023 resurfacing list go onto the council agenda. They'll vote on that, and then we can go out and take bids to have those resurfaced. Then we almost immediately start the process over again for 2024. So like you've reported that you see issues on Clear Lake, there's construction out there, so that'll probably go straight to the top of Councilman Wiggins' list, and we'll go through that same process. Depending on what the budget is, we'll pay it down until we run out of money, but we keep that list and we just keep updating it every year. So luckily, this council has actually set forth a process, so we will have dollars to pave every year. And it's based off of our gas tax and some Rebuild Alabama dollars that we get. So we're looking at about $750,000 this year is what we'll be able to use on our resurface. So we'll write that down and add it to the list to evaluate, and then the next paving contract will come up about this time next year. We do it once a year. We do it in fall now because we get better prices, because most everybody, schools and everything, wants their stuff paved in the summer when school's out. So if we wait right until school goes back, then we're able to get a lot better prices and be able to pave a lot more streets.
Excuse me. May I ask, I mean, you must
I'm Tara Tubbs.
She's the engineer.
I'm the city engineer.
She's doing a
What's your
great
name?
job.
Tara Tubbs. Tara Tubbs. Oh, okay, thank you. Well, I'm fairly new to Northport, so, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does the frequency of, or a quantity of cars factor into anything? Cause like you said, Bayview Court, and I'm not picking on them, I'm on that street a lot, but it's, you know, it ends in a little cul-de-sac and there's like 4 houses there versus like a bunch of cars that go, say, down Hunter Creek or clearly, I'm just curious if the volume affects any decision making.
Not particularly. I
Just
mean,
whoever
we just,
screams loudest and longest.
no, it's whatever one is, the roads that are in the, so we, the engineering staff is always gonna provide the ones that are from worst to best. I mean, so, and there's some, I mean, that, you know, when you're looking down and trying to make that decision, you know, cause they rank basically from as 1 to 5. And you're trying to make that decision, both of these sections of road are, you know, both bad, and I could have to pick one or the other. You know, you may look at it and say, okay, well, they're exact same price, and this one serves, you know, 500 people, and this one serves 5 people, then you would probably put the 500 one up first, because the taxpayers are going to get better bang for that buck. But we don't typically look at it and say how many cars a day are in each road to make our decision. We
Who
try to
does that
just
on a
pay.
street like that, check how many cars travel the road? Who does that? Who's responsible for that? ALDOT?
Well, it depends on, there's several different entities that do it. ALDOT does it, and then our West Alabama Regional Commission has the Metropolitan Planning Organization. They actually go in and do that as well. We have the ability to do that in-house if we need to for certain things, but we typically we don't go out and do that. Somebody else keeps those numbers for us. But most of our paving is gonna be basically on residential streets that we do every day. The stuff that you see, like the Watermelon Roads and the Charlie Shirley Roads, and we got Main Avenue and Fish Street, Rose Boulevard, several other ones that are in the works. We have to go and look for dollars to help with that. So those are all going to be budgeted with 80% federal dollars and 20% city dollars, just because they get so expensive. I mean, Charlie Shirley Road was $1.8 million.
Does the county help with that? I mean, a lot of their people are traveling those to get out.
They do not. I mean, they don't, but like we get federal dollars based off of the population in our county. It's not exactly that way, but it's what our planning organization, and so those dollars are split amongst the people in the county. So they always support us because they do recognize that a lot of their residents are using our roads, so they support us well when we're dividing up those dollars. The county's really good to work with.
And there's also an organization too that, besides the EPO, the TIGRIC, which is like a cooperative group between the city of Tuscaloosa, the city of Northport, and Tuscaloosa County to do road projects as well. So we do try to work with them to address issues, because obviously we're all sharing roads going back and forth between all those communities.
If you think about $750,000 resurfacing budget for 2023, and Charlie Shirley was $1.8 million. You can see how we have to find grant dollars and stuff like that.
My question is, I was looking at the district map, and I see, you know, what's in the city, and then, woo-hoo, there's a big.
Swiss cheese.
Right,
Yeah.
can the city of Northport annex some of this stuff, or do they have to, go along with it?
So there are ways for the city to annex land. None of them is particularly easy.
Well, I mean, if you're looking at Watermelon Road, you have all the doctor's offices that are by where I live, they're in their city. So I'm sure they pay city taxes after wazoo.
Right.
Because they got business. But down the street, it's like.
It's very patchy out there, yeah.
Yeah, very patchy.
So the way the city, it's my understanding, and I'm not a lawyer, but I have done a little bit of reading on this just to try to understand it. The city can annex land through an act of the state legislature. So we could convince our congressional group
To square up the map.
to just say, hey, we want to annex all of this, and if the legislature passed it, it would be annexed. Another way is an individual landowner who is contiguous to the city limits. So like, let's say Watermelon Road, for some reason, is in the city limits, and the right-of-way is in the city limits, even though a property maybe on Watermelon Road is not. But because that landowner, if they have a house there and they're on Watermelon Road, they could say, I want to have my property in the city limits, and they could be annexed just by a council ordinance. The last way would be like through, if you had a neighborhood, then there has to be basically a vote or petition by the neighborhood to be added to.
Well, like these businesses that are down the road, is there any benefit for these businesses to come into the city limits?
Well, they would probably, if they're contiguous to the.
They are contiguous to Watermelon Road.
Right, if they're contiguous to Watermelon Road, I mean, the way, if you ever sit, there's a lot of times we're in a council meeting and we're talking about like a property somewhere wants to get city water, and they are not adjacent to the city limits, so we vote to give them water, but they have to basically agree that if the city limits ever touch their property, they have to come into the city limits.
Yeah.
And so the way it would work is, if you were there, if you're asking what the benefit would be, the benefit would be to get city water and sewer. So most likely they're not on. They're on.
Do they have to pay the higher taxes if they annex?
Yeah, I mean there'd be a higher property tax for sure. Because Northport pays 5 mils more property tax than the county does. Yes, sir.
Having served 3 years, 3 4-year terms as District 3's
God love you.
councilman. I have a question.
Sure.
If you're gonna run for re-election, I tell you, a good way to get re-elected, don't
Okay.
sell our community center.
Speak up, please.
Don't sell our community center if he
sell our
wants to get
community center.
reelected.
Oh,
Why are you selling?
Well, I'm not selling it because we haven't gotten a proposal yet. Now, if I choose to vote for selling it, when that comes up, it would be because I felt like it was the best thing for the city of Northport and for the district. I will say that I don't think we did a good job ahead of time of planning what we were gonna do when we sold it. And we are working on that. We can't talk about all the things that we're working on yet, but my statement to the city administrator and to Tara and to the other council members is that I feel like if we get to a point where we're going to sell it, we need to have all of the plans outlined for what we're going to do afterward. We are working on, I'm trying to make sure I don't say anything I'm not supposed to say. We're working on plans for a senior center, not at that location, if this sale goes through. We're working on plans for replacing some of the other things that happen there. But I can't, until we're ready to vote, we're not gonna have that all outlined. But when we are ready to vote, we will have a plan for what we're gonna do with all of that.
I can tell you, I'm not gonna vote for you if you vote to sell that property. I have never heard of anybody selling a park. You know, a park.
Especially when the citizens have been very vocal about not wanting it to be sold.
Well,
It's not like it's.
And I hear the word surplus, you know.
Well, that's a technical term.
I know it's a technical.
What I mean by that is when a city for a city to sell property, they have to declare it surplus. So that's just a legal justification for selling the property. It does, and the city can say that any property is surplus, and that's just something the law says they have to do.
Even if you get rid of an old filing cabinet that's bent and drawers won't open, we have to consider it surplus. That's just
Right,
state
but
law.
I'm just telling you, I'm not gonna vote for you if you sell it.
I understand.
That's where you and I disagree.
Sure, and I mean, I understand that, and
It's a park.
right, I understand.
It's a park.
Yes, it is a park.
And it's used.
And it's used. Even if it wasn't used, it's a park.
Sure.
And
Well,
there's other properties for developers to buy where they don't have to buy our park, because it's our park. It's not your park, it's our park.
Sure. I mean, and I think, you know, the thing that I would say, when you said like the citizens are against it, well, I haven't heard from very many citizens in District 3 that have said anything about it. I mean, I've heard from a couple of people in the last.
Here we are.
No, I heard from a few people in the last town hall meeting. I think I've gotten 2 or 3 emails from people. I haven't heard very many people in District 3 that care about it. And I mean, when you say like there are a lot of people, sure, there are hundreds of people who.
It's a
care.
park.
Hang on, let me finish what I'm saying. There are hundreds of people who are very adamant about not selling it. But we've got 30,000 people in the city, and I'm not seeing any kind of numbers that look like a lot of citizens
Well,
care.
why don't we put it up for a vote?
Well, because that's not what we're gonna do.
That's right. That's not what you're gonna
But to
do.
be fair,
That'll come
Well,
in 2 years.
Sure.
to be
be an
fair, have you gotten a lot in support of selling it?
We've got a few.
So it's the same. It's essentially it's a wash, is what you're saying.
From
From
my
what you-
perspective,
yeah.
from District 3, that
I just
all
wanted
know,
to
but
make
from
sure
District
we
3,
were
I've gotten 2 or 3
fair
people
about
that
it.
have emailed and said yes, and 2 or 3 people who emailed and said don't. And I mean, obviously, there are a lot of people who are at the council meetings, but they don't tend to be people from District 3. And I'm not sure what. Sure, okay. I mean, I understand.
I'm just
and
gonna tell you, you don't sell parks. I've never heard of it, selling a park.
So I'm just gonna put my 2 cents in here. I'm a mom of 4. I've been to that park. I hated it because it's next to a gas station and a busy road, and there's no barrier around it. And I always felt like there were other places a better park would be. I haven't felt comfortable coming out and saying that on any platform because.
So you don't live over there in that area?
I live in District 3.
No, but you don't live over there where the park is. So, I mean, the park is not in District 3.
I'm aware of that. Yeah, but I'm just saying, I've used the park, and as a mom, like you're saying, no, everybody's against it, and I'm just telling you, everybody's not against it, but there are people who don't feel comfortable coming out against you because of how vocal you guys have been and how ugly you've been about it.
Well, and I would say that
I don't think we're ugly. I don't think
Okay.
we're ugly. We're just,
I personally and the council members have been called names, made light of, made fun of, had people threaten us. So I think some people have been ugly about it. I'm not saying you have, because I don't think you have to me. But some people have been really ugly and over the top about it. And I think that has had the opposite effect on the council than people intend. For better or worse, that's the truth. I agree with you. My kids and my wife and I have spent time in that park before. My kids are all grown now, so they're not doing that now. But, they talked about the gas station, people creeping them out by standing around there watching the kids. It is a loud park because of being located next to the highway. It doesn't feel particularly safe to me. So I don't think it's all that great a park, but I understand a lot of people care about the history of it and what it meant to them, and they care about the building and what it meant to them. And I understand that people feel that way.
Well, you're putting a ballpark next to the solid waste, sewer place.
And I do say, we go there sometimes twice a week for the dances there. And we have always felt safe. And now don't go around the service station or up and down the other street. And then we have a group of people that if somebody leaves the building at night by themselves, they'll watch and make sure they get to the car.
Well, sure. And I mean,
Always felt
I
safe.
think if you're there with, 50 or 100 people, you
Right,
probably
yeah,
do
that does
feel
make a
safe.
difference.
But I mean, if
Oh, I
you're there
wouldn't.
with the mom and
Well, I
three
wouldn't
kids,
want to go to any
whatever.
park by myself.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just know that, we went to different parks rather than that one. We didn't spend a lot of time in that one.
Well, I wasn't trying to be ugly about it.
I mean, I understand.
But some people have been.
Sure.
I just feel like it's something that's been there for a long
I mean,
time.
it's
And all the
fair
money-
that everybody feels the way they feel.
All the money to buy the building was raised by the community. The city didn't pay anything for it. And they made it a dedicated park. There's a state law that says you can't sell a dedicated park without a vote of the people.
Right, but they didn't do
They
that.
didn't.
Right.
That's a mistake I made.
And I do live by the park, and I am a mom, and we always feel safe, even in the dusk, and we walk home. And we have for years, for
Good to know.
decades.
I drove around there the other day, and there's just some charming homes, just really charming.
Everyone that lives on Park Street, they all want to keep the park, everyone in our neighborhood. And we live there, and we do love it.
I hate to lose this, what do you call it, the historical house. What do you call your greenhouse?
Oh, the Heritage Museum.
Heritage house. I hate to see it be moved over and you gonna move it over and hide it. That to me is important.
Is there some reason why we won't be able to use it, use the community center for the remainder of the year after this month?
Because of the way that, because we're
Surplus.
no, that has nothing to do with it. Because we potentially would sell it, we informed Para not to rent it out after this fiscal year. So that because their fiscal year runs October 1st to September 30th, that's why they're not renting it. I mean, like, potentially, I guess there'd be some other way, but my understanding is we don't actually have a written contract with Para, which is another issue that I think needs to be addressed. But nobody can find one then.
There is a legal document from the state from 1969. They created Para and made.
No.
Put it all
I'm not
together.
saying that Para isn't legal. I'm saying that I don't think there is a contract for services between Northport and Para and what they do.
1969 document. It's a
Okay.
state law.
That says.
They
what
created
exactly.
Para.
That's not what I'm talking
He's
about.
saying that a contract between the city of Northport
Well,
and Para.
Like for the services that Para provides for this community center, the renting it out and doing the events there is no contract for that service.
I get the feeling that the city of Northport has a vendetta with Para. Is there one?
I do not have a vendetta with Para.
Okay.
I don't know. I think that there are some personality clashes that have happened between the city and Para, but I'll tell you that I have recently asked the city administrator to write a letter to Para's director and board, and because of, we're working on that Warrior Sports Complex, right? And they put a big old pile of dirt out there as part of the getting ready for all the work that's going to be done. And
You did or they did?
I didn't do it.
No, I mean the city did or the
The
Para?
city did.
Oh, okay.
As part of the pre-construction work. And I know that it made some people at Kentuck unhappy. And so they were talking with us about Para, and Para's not gonna run anymore, and we're like, no, that hasn't changed. We're working with them to try to make sure that the park is going to be the festival and the park are gonna be, tied together, and I know that's not what you asked, okay, so, back to the para thing.
So you're, yeah.
Back to the para thing. I think that I think the new director at para, I've met him, Brian, he seems to be a great guy. I think that in the past, there were some issues with the, the clarity of what para was spending their money on and how they were spending it. I think I've talked to people in the city of Tuscaloosa and Tuscaloosa County, and everybody has their own issues with para and sort of how it runs. I don't know what the solution is to that. I think that the new director is trying to work on improving relations between all the different communities. I think there have been a lot of ideas of what to do to better understand. You know, if you think about the city of Northport, para only operates, I think they do, you know, obviously the community park. And Kentuck, they do some of the maintenance out there. Fawcett Center's not in the city.
It's not?
Nope.
It's in the
It's in the
county?
county. So those two facilities, the community, the community park and Kentuck are really the only facilities that para runs in the city. So there has been a feeling in the past of why should we pay them a ton of money when all they're doing is these two things? And on the community park, they were making money, right? They're actually bringing
Yeah,
in
they make money.
They were bringing in revenue that they weren't sharing with the city. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's any like animosity or anything like that. I think there's just kind of there have been sort of differences of opinion on how much Northport should owe to para.
When you talk to your representative, Northport has a representative that you appoint.
Right.
Did you talk to them?
Yes.
And then, let me point out Circle Park and Old Colony.
Right.
That you have access to. It's
Right.
closer to 100% of the people in Northport than 50% of the people in Tuscaloosa. You're so closer to Circle Park.
Yeah, that's where, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have access to that para before. And you.
Right, and I mean, it's not in the city limits, it is in the county, I think, technically. But it's close, obviously, and, you know, we do, I mean, like, para has a golf tournament that they've done, they did it last year, and they're about to do it again this year, and we provided, I think, $50,000 of in-kind services to help go clean up, you know, cut tree limbs and do some maintenance to get ready for that. So we are, you know, I feel like we're doing our part, but no, I mean, to the original question, I don't think that there's any animosity between the city and
I don't want to interrupt about the community center, so. I've been told time and time again where I live, Comcast has a franchise or monopoly or whatever you want to call it in our area. Does that last forever?
Well, interesting that you bring that up today. Do you want me to take this one?
Sure.
Because I just dug into it this morning.
You got an answer for it.
I do. So the franchise agreement for any utility to come in and do work in the right of way, they have to have a franchise agreement with the city. For Comcast in particular, it was 2017, the last time the franchise agreement was signed. And it was lasted for 5 years, and then it automatically renewed for 5 more years. Some of our franchise agreements are required to give us permits before they go out there and actually work in the right of way. And some of the franchise agreements don't require that. For instance, Alabama Power has a franchise agreement with us, but they're protected federally. They don't have to get any permits. They can just come in and do work in the right of way. AT&T does get permits with us. Comcast, C-Spire, the ones that do the fiber optic work, most of those do not have to have agreements. We're trying to change that. The council is very supportive of us trying to change that, but it's a very slow process when they have an agreement that's good for 5 more years. So, we had problems this morning with Comcast because they've gone through several people's yards. They didn't come back and fix their yards. We don't even have a contact. We don't even know who it is. Somebody just calls and says somebody did work in my right of way or in my yard, and we don't know what utility company it was because we don't have a record because they're not required to do that. So we're trying to change that, and as those franchise agreements come up, we're requiring them to notify us because there is a lot of issues, and they're doing a lot of fiber optic work in the city right now. So we're getting lots of calls and complaints. So we're trying to do the best that we can to reach out to our contacts and say come back and fix. But
Is this gonna slow our area down getting that fiber optic?
they seem to be blowing and going. They seem to be.
Can they come in now?
Oh yes, sir. This agreement, it just renewed 2022, so they have another 5 years before we even have to get another agreement from us. So it'll be 2027, 2028 before we have a new franchise agreement with them.
So they'll have a contract, I mean, they have a franchise agreement till 27?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
So if we wanted the fiber optic, we can't have.
No. What I'm saying, I probably misunderstood where you were going with your question. I just went straight to the issue that I was dealing with this morning. Typically, when I hear people mention franchise agreements, Comcast, Charter, all that, they're upset because their yard has been dug up because they're installing fiber. They have an agreement and they have the ability to do that without letting the city know where they are. Okay, so that we're trying to, that's gonna be a slow process, but we're trying to correct that so they at least have to let us know ahead of time when they're gonna come and work. So, but yes, all those companies are out there actively installing fiber. Now, if that's what you're interested in is getting it to your house, I can't give you where their plan is, but they do have agreements in place with the city of Northport to go in and allow them to put those utilities in our right of way.
See, right now, I can't get anything but Comcast.
Okay. I know Charter is one that's out there putting it in a lot of different places. So you may could contact them and see if they have a plan on when it may come to your area, but I know they're putting it in a lot of places. They're in Hidden Meadows right now, I think.
But I don't think if you had Charter, you could watch all on football.
That was Spectrum. That's who my cable provider.
Okay, not Charter.
That's who my internet provider is.
Spectrum, really?
It's the same
Yeah,
thing.
Disney, I think Disney was.
They had a big deal this weekend where they were not showing any of the ESPN channels.
Okay, I'm change subjects. I had asked you about mosquito control, about the schedule and the timing and things like that.
So, so the schedule as far as when it happens is basically the same as the garbage schedule, but what I found out, Brooke, they want to answer this better than I can, but the spray that we use is safe for humans, so it's water soluble. It is only supposed to attack the mosquitoes, and so it's supposed to be safe to spray it during the day.
We used to ride our bicycles, but.
Well,
that was a long.
Yes, that was a different one.
DDT.
I remember that one because that one smelled really
But
bad.
this water soluble, it won't affect the eggs and mosquitoes. I mean, there won't be any residue there for, you see what I mean? Well,
Yes,
what
ma'am.
is the schedule? Is it once a week, every 2 weeks?
Once a week.
Is it once a week?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Whatever day your garbage and trash and recycling pick up
Oh,
on.
okay.
Do you have bad mosquitoes?
No, I don't, and I'm thankful. I'm glad to have the mosquito control.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just where I used to live, we didn't see them or hear them till 9 o'clock at night.
Oh.
We could hear, and then it wasn't every 2 weeks, it was about every 2 weeks, it wasn't just that garbage.
I have a weird question about that. Should we be seeing the spray?
It's not gonna hurt.
Seriously, because sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. We're like, did you run out on our street?
Well, it's possible they did run out.
Because I'm like, it kind of, I love the guys, but no offense, they kind of look dumb circling without like anything coming out the back. And I'm like, maybe I'm the dummy. And there's
Just
not.
wave them down and say, I think you're
I'm
on.
like, do you know? It's kind of like being a skyrider, but none's coming out.
It's not like you know, when I was growing up, they'd spray the mosquito drug and there'd be a giant cloud of smoke.
Yeah.
everywhere.
But I mean,
I'm
I've
sure
seen,
it's
I've
like
seen
that.
the mist come out, and then there's times where I'm like, huh, I don't think they know they're in.
Well, I'm thankful for it.
Yes, sir.
Any update on the Martin Road Utilities project?
I'm not familiar with that one.
What utility?
Supposed to be putting in water and sewer after this new, subdivision would, I guess, would be in District 3.
Okay, so I've never heard anybody refer to it as the Martin Road Utilities Project. So you threw me off there. We have been talking 69 North.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we did a study, and it's actually Cassidy and Company is under contract to do the design to run new water or new sewer. It's just a sewer project. It's not a water project. New sewer from where it ends all the way up to pick up our Forest Trail apartment complexes that are in the city. We need to pick them up to be able to get rid of a pump station there, and then actually add some capacity in other areas all the way back down to Highway 82. So they're in the design of that, and then what that'll allow us to do is give us a good idea on what the cost estimate it is to do the entire project, give us an idea of what properties we're gonna need, like easements from, and then once we get that entire design done, we'll be able to determine what's the best way to phase it, because I imagine that we're not gonna be able to pay for it all at once. Although, we have applied for several different grants to be able to do it all at once, but, you know, we'd have to get those. So, once we get that final design, we'll better be able to divide it up and just see how much money we have to do it in chunks. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have a question.
Okay.
You know, the water park, I drive to
I do.
Buell every day because I have a horse. And anyway, I see the little building guy moved.
Mhm.
So is that part of our water park?
Mhm.
Okay, well, it used to be a service station.
Mhm.
So are we gonna have to dig up those
All
pumps?
that's already been handled. Like,
It's
everything's
already been-
yes, that was already done.
That's already done. Okay, that's good.
Any other questions?
I love the garbage men in the street department when they pick up my stuff.
They do a great job.
They do a great
job.
They really do.
They're nice, they do a good job.
One thing I found out when I got on the city
Yay.
council is that the garbage trucks have cameras on them.
They do?
And they do a great job of making sure that everybody is honest about what happens off a garbage truck. So if somebody says, I didn't get my garbage picked up, we can tell whether or not they put their trash can in. Which is pretty fun. But yeah, that's one thing I didn't realize until yeah. It's,
Be careful. It was out there. I promise it was. Right. Well, it wasn't at
Well,
704.
well, they're still nice.
yeah, they do a good job.
Yeah.
I have no complaints about this.
I have one question about the location of the farmer's market in Northport.
Okay.
Who is in charge of that?
It's in the county.
It's the county, because I've been there when, after it rained, and I couldn't even get out of my car. So who do I call about that?
I guess maybe the it's the.
Are you talking about like the lot itself? you
It's
figured out?
Tuscaloosa County Farmers Association. I have his name in here. Let me flip.
Thank you.
David Dowdy. Yeah, that's who it is.
Truck
Dowdy.
Growers Association.
What is it?
Truck Growers.
He'll probably have Dowdy.
There you go. Here's your contact right there.
Truck Growers Association.
Truck growers.
Truck Growers.
So are you saying like the road itself getting out or in the parking lot?
The parking lot's like
Well,
muddy.
they don't have a parking lot, they park on the
Well, I know
grass.
they had some gravel on some of
But
them.
and they have put some down, but it's still, and then they had a great big pile that was just sitting there.
Yeah.
And it could have been put down since I've been there last, but it was a little dangerous to walk.
Yeah, the last time I was there, it improved greatly from the
It was bad.
So, but, yeah.
Took me weeks to get the mud off the car tires.
Can I ask one more question about 82? We were talking about that a while ago.
Sure.
When you said they were finishing some stuff and widening, are we gonna end up with it being a 6-lane? Is that the plan?
Yes, I think it'll be
Thank you,
6-lane all the way
Okay.
to the bridge. And I think there was a plan at some point to add a lane to the bridge, but I don't know if that has anything to do with this project.
Yeah, they actually did, get a grant to, and that project to replace that bridge, well, they're not just gonna take it out but they'll, they'll build one bridge while traffic's on the
What
existing
bridge are
one.
we talking about?
The one over the, river.
The one over the river at 82.
branch.
Is it the?
Before Jack Warner.
Woolsey Fennell.
Woolsey Fennell, the Fennell
yeah,
Bridge.
Fennell
I
Bridge,
wouldn't know that.
So they have, it has to be under construction, or they have to let it to a contractor by, I think, the end of 2026. So, and that bridge will actually be able to carry the 6 lanes and also have pedestrian facilities like bike lanes and,
My question
sidewalks.
to that is, when you get on the Tuscaloosa side, where are you gonna get the other lanes from?
They, also have a project, I think they're about to start working on that one, if I'm not mistaken.
But didn't Shelby get them $100 million to do that bridge?
Shelby.
Yes, he did.
I think Shelby drives on Watermelon Road too.
You might do it.
He does.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna ask, all the work they're doing at Hunter Creek and 82, like with that drainage, is like to help the drainage, help all that water drain better when it rains?
So, are you talking about like under the road?
Mhm.
Okay, so mainly that, I know Tara knows this, but I've talked to the project manager, cause I asked some questions about, 2 Mile Creek and Hunter Creek and how that all was working. Basically, all they did was they did clean out the culverts under the highway, but basically they've just extended them out to add the additional lanes of traffic. So,
It's not wider, able to hold more flow or something like that?
not really, I mean,
Okay.
like, not significantly more, it's just,
Carl Wallaby,
to send the road out.
culvert was completely stopped up.
That's true, I mean, like,
Cleaning it out makes a lot of difference.
they were silted up, one of them was, almost full, and then another one was half full, so they did clean all of that out. And that's probably something we need to keep a better eye on and hold the state accountable to
I was
clean
gonna
out.
say, is that the state's responsibility
I
to
mean,
keep it dredged down
It
or
depends
whatever?
on who you ask, but I think technically yes, but will they actually stay on top of it? Probably not unless we report it, so I think that's
Yeah,
something that we'll.
because that
need to stay
part
on
of the
top
road is a big problem anytime it rains
Yeah.
significantly,
They also widened the path of the water near the road, near 82, on both
Right.
sides. Form pools, he told me, that would kind of help keep it from backing up into the houses behind us.
Right, that's one of the issues with like 2 Mile Creek is that it does back up when there's a lot of rain. And, I mean, my understanding is that's a problem all the way down the creek to the river, but, because it's a fairly narrow channel. But
And
yeah,
also
it
the
does-
new bridge over, Martin Luther King Boulevard, the new bridge there, I think will help, they'll clean out a good bit around it, which should help the flow of the water too.
Yeah.
So
Yes, sir.
I can't remember what that meeting was called, but where the guy presented that Monday night, was it last Monday night?
The visioning.
Yeah, so you guys were talking about how hold the state accountable, but he was talking a lot about, taking some of the weight, I guess, for lack of a better word, the stress off of 69 or widening it. Well, I guess were we doing that as a city to back us up in petitioning the state? Cause like, otherwise, what's our business even if we have
Well,
the state?
when he said widening 69, that's a state decision.
Yeah.
We don't have,
Okay.
I say that, and I was like, we don't have any control over that.
Okay, so he just.
So yeah.
I was just
don't
like,
know if
how
he
is that
knows or
gonna
not.
help us, or is it?
Yeah.
Is that what we needed to get the state to get off?
So one of the things he did talk about was, or in the plan it talks about is adding additional routes that don't
Yeah,
exist,
saw
and
that.
adding streets that don't exist, and
And
that
that
is
really
something.
help a lot of people.
Well, it could if
Closer
you
in.
could, it could if you could avoid some of the other traffic, but it's not gonna do anything to make 69 traffic flow any better
Well, it's
necessarily.
8 AM traffic, 8 AM traffic.
Right. So I know we have numerous times asked the state to look at it and do something about it, but you know, they operate on their own time.
Sure.
Where that got us, you talk about McFarland.
Well, just 69 traffic from, you know, where a lot of the new neighborhoods have been built, you know, up
Where that
toward
got
that
messed
area.
up, the original plan when they built McFarland, if you'll notice over there, it's high on the left, high on the right. And that was gonna be a bridge across there. That was in the plan.
Like
when
over
they built
69, you
McFarland.
mean?
It's for that to go, a bridge to go over 69, and the time they did it, and all the merchants up where Publix is and around, jumped up and down, screaming and hollering, so they did away with it, so now you're down going back up. And that traffic wouldn't be there, but they just let that slide.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's 7 o'clock. Like I said, appreciate everybody's time, appreciate you coming out. I know, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk to you guys and, you know, answer your questions. I'm glad that you're interested in what goes on in the city and in the district. Like I said, I've got business cards here. If you know, if you need to contact me, if you got a problem in your neighborhood or a concern or question, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, no, I'm